Yep. Okay, so hello everybody. I'm Simon. I've actually got a thing at the end, so I'll just talk about me later. But for some bizarre reason, I decided to give 2 talks this year. I think they wanted talks. So, there we go. That's all right. My fault. I started early. And this is, like you say, this is very tangentially related to Perl. Perl is mentioned at one point in the talk. It's actually about multi-stage Docker and what it is. So who here is using Docker at all in their day jobs or just for the fun of it? Cool. Then you may know about this already, or you may find it helpful. So I will go through. So, sorry, I thought someone said something. So I've got 3 questions to answer, which is, what are multi-stage Docker images? Why would you want to use a multi-stage Docker image? And how do you do it? I'm just not going to answer it in that order. I'm going to start with why do you want to use a multi-stage Docker image? So this is a little story from a few years back now, where we were building a single-page application using a system called Vue. I don't know if anybody's used it. It's really nice. I love it. But it works by, uploading. You get a web page with a really small bit of HTML and a load of JavaScript. So the page is a little bit slow to start, but after that, you're running in a client. Can be quite useful, though. But what you can do with it is you can do what's called pre-rendering, where you fire up a Chrome browser, basically, a headless Chrome browser, point it at your Express server that's running your code, which then renders it and then pumps out some HTML that calls the rest of the JavaScript. So it basically gives you the core parts of your page without anything having happened on them, so that it sort of just speeds up the build a little bit. So this uses a headless Chrome install because, JavaScript developers, they're crazy. Here we go, here's the mention of Perl. But the plan was to actually then serve the static files using a Perl 6 Crow app, because I was kind of over in a corner doing skunkworksy stuff and nobody was really noticing what I was doing. So I'm like, I'm going to do this when I was looking. It didn't work. The project got cancelled. But it doesn't matter because it was still a useful idea. And the idea, the Crow app was going to also act as a WebSocket interface to the front-end single-page app, because we had to be able to use some encrypted data, but we couldn't have the front-end decrypting that. So we were going to use WebSocket so that it could get the data and then send it down and come back with a response and stuff. But anybody who's done anything with Docker can look at this and go, wait a second, if this is one Docker build, it's going to be a problem because of Docker layers. Don't worry if layers is one of those things that I'm going into that next. On this one. So this is a very important thing to bear in mind. Docker files never get smaller. Every command you put in a Docker file, which then creates your image, the best it will do is mean your image is the same size as it was before you put that command in the Docker file. But generally, it will make your image a little bit larger, and each one will make it a little bit larger. It's a write-only file system. Even if you delete something in a command, unless you added it in the same command, then it doesn't get any smaller. Probably press the right button. Yeah. So each file creates a new layer, and each layer makes it bigger. I probably should have remembered what I'd written on these slides when I was talking. So this is great because it allows for caching. I mean, if you built a Docker file, then a well-built Docker file can zip through stuff which is cached and just do changes for the things you've changed. So if you built your Docker file really well, then you can build things really quickly. But the problem with it is like I say, if you want to install a massive, if you want to install Chrome and then run Chrome and then delete it, you either have to do that all on one line with lots and lots of ampersands and stuff and lots of complication, or you need some other kind of plan. And because we were then having to run external files and pull things in, it was all getting very complicated. We didn't want this massive image which had Node, Vue, Chrome, all of these things in the image which we weren't going to be using, and yeah, so need a plan. So there's some solutions. There are some things you can do. You can have two Docker files. You can have one file that does your generation that you mount on a volume and then writes the files onto that volume, and then you build a second one that copies in the data from the volume, and then you have it that way. That can work. You can use Jenkins pipelines for this kind of stuff. Problem is, they're a bit of a pain. They're like maintaining them. It's really easy for something to go wrong in the build process, and then you just go back and you have to tweak it. And you don't want to do that. This is the kind of stuff where you want to set it up at the beginning, and then you don't want to have to think about it again. You just can get on with writing the code and solving the problems, which is the important thing. So what would be really awesome is if there was a way we could get Docker to say, build my stuff, and then get the data from that build, but throw away the rest of it. And that is what a multi-stage image is. So I will now demonstrate how to build one, he says, if I press the button in the right way. So, this is a very, very simplified Docker file. So we're pulling from image 1. So that's maybe our Alpine with Chromium installed, blah, 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 initial starting image. Then we're running our job that creates the data file that we want and puts it somewhere. And note that when we're running this, we don't have to mount a volume. It runs, creates the file and stores it on the local file system of the Docker image that's running during the build. Okay, with me so far? Then we have a second from command. So we're effectively starting a new Docker image, just here. And that's really what it's doing. It's going, boom, second stage, here we are. And this is the secret sauce, this is the magic. There we go. Job done, I'm off. No. So we're doing a copy command, and we're using this from, where we're basically saying we're copying from 0 being the first image, because computer scientists, we count from 0. And then we can define the path of where we want our file to be, and then we can copy it across. And there we go. And then what happens is, when this image is finally built, you only get this bit. This is the part of the image that actually goes onto your Docker hub and that you download. All of this stuff doesn't happen. So you don't get the Chromium, you don't get the node, you don't get any of that stuff. You just get your finally created files. So anywhere where you want to be doing a bunch of stuff and creating a bunch of data, but then most of it you want to throw away and you just want the last bit, multi-stage images can help. But here's another trick. So here's our initial code. But now what we do is we give our image a name. So we say image 1 that we're pulling from, we're calling that builder, and that means now down here, these two lines have stayed the same, and then down here, now instead of copying from 0, which, yes, it makes sense, but it is a bit ugly, now we can say copy from builder, which is nice and simple, because you can see it up there, you know what it means. Other than that, it's still exactly the same. It turns out exactly the same way. You still get this nice small image that just has the data in that you want, which is cool. What did I say next? I can't remember. So that's most of it. Oh dear, I've been talking too quickly. I've got to stop doing that. So a few more thoughts on this. You can have more than 2 stages. So you could have multiple things of this. So if you need, like I say, you could have different parts using different languages. So if you've got one thing where you've got a Python script that does what you want, and a second bit that's got a Perl script that does what you want, and a third bit that's a Java thing or whatever, you can just stack them all up and just have them all running, and at the end you've got your final data. And all of the stuff that you did on the way down just gets thrown away. So you've got a nice small image. I quite like this one. You can also copy from a pre-built image. So this one's quite nice, where it's like get the Nginx config file from the Nginx latest image, and then you could potentially run something that modifies that config and adds additional config that you want, or if you just want the default Nginx config kind of thing. That was quite good. When you're building an image, there's a target command line option that lets you specify the point in the build you want to stop at. So if you want to check that one of the stages along the way has worked the way you expect it to, you can build it to that point and then have a look at that image. Go and exec and look around in it, poke around, check the file system out, and all this kind of stuff, which is great. And yeah, all of this, basically all of these slides are pretty much me just reading that page that I've linked there, and I will put the slides up on the site and stuff. It goes through it, and it's basically what I've said here. I thought it was interesting because it's not something I've seen mentioned a lot, but I think it is something that would be really helpful to anybody who's using Docker in a day-to-day kind of job. So I thought it might be something that people might be interested in. Yeah, so that's about it really. This was possibly slightly shorter talk than I thought it was going to be. So we can all get coffee early. Yeah, I'm Simon. I work at Zoopla, DevOps and back-endy stuff. We are hiring. It's all cool. I'll put up that slide. And if anybody's got any questions about Docker or Zoopla or Perl 6, if they like, Raku, whatever. Hello.
Given the fact that the Docker layer stuff is you to build, it's smart enough to only build the bits it needs to and random on.
Yeah.
How does that interact with the multi-stage, especially if you've got several?
So the caching stuff, it does cache it. So if you like I said, the one we were doing with the Chromium, it would cache most of the way down until you get to the point where you're copying, because generally it would be the point where you're copying in the app files for the service, and then it would do the Puppeteer run. It would cache all the way down to that, and then it would do it. So it just runs like a normal build, but
If you've got two pre-units,
yeah.
so doing something with Perl, something with Java,
Yeah.
if you've got elements that will cause the first one to change,
It will then rebuild the whole lot. Yeah, because your data's different, so it's got to change. But yeah. Any other questions? I'm sorry, I thought I talked too fast. I should have remembered that and thought of some more stuff to write. But no? Coffee early then, I guess. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.